it really gives this pure feeling to the guitar. The guitar just sounds pure. Here is a guitar by the luthier Reza Safavian, who is living in Germany at the time. Now, Reza Safavian is building some of the most sought-after double tops in the world. He has a very low output, something like 4 guitars a year. So you can imagine how quickly this wait list can just rack up when you only build a few guitars a year. But to me, it's very obvious how much care he puts into each instrument. Because I have to agree with some other folks out there that have said that these guitars are incredibly similar to the guitars of Matthias Dammann, both in terms of volume, sustain being fairly even all over the neck, and color. And maybe most importantly of all of these qualities is how natural this guitar remains to sound despite its incredible volume. In fact, I'm gonna have to check my microphones here before I play too much on it to make sure that I'm not peaking the mics, because this thing is incredibly loud and, by the way, incredibly lightweight. So before I get into the sound of this guitar, I have to tell you it is a cedar double top with Nomex in the in-between layers. You'll see this beautiful green rosette. I mean, if you are into green, this is such a beautiful rosette on this guitar. And I have to say, the finish work on this guitar, the French polish, is very similar to the highest quality French polishes that I've ever seen. In fact, I just reviewed a guitar by Michel Bruck, and I have to compare this to that one. It is an incredibly perfect French polish. It is like a mirror, and if you listen carefully with headphones, you will hear this guitar vibrating as I'm talking to an almost unbelievable degree. If you were holding this guitar and talking, you would know what I'm talking about. It's insane. So you go down to the tie block and you'll see very simple, just pearloid here on the tie block. Very much reminds me of Matthias Dammann's guitars. Many of his recent guitars just have a pearloid block there. No other ornaments there. We have a raised fingerboard just slightly. And then when you flip the guitar around, it is Indian rosewood back and sides. You'll have no problems traveling overseas with this guitar. Now, let's talk a little bit about the neck. The neck of this guitar is rounded and C-shaped, which I really like. I've given Reza actually his direct feedback from another guitar of his that I had experience with. In fact, I might have had 2 other guitars of his here. And before, he was making these flat necks and very D-shaped where the shoulders came up quite a bit here. And that wasn't exactly my preference. So I much prefer this type, and he's really knocked it out of the park. Now, when I got this guitar in, it had a very high action. It was very unplayable, to be honest with you. And it always baffles me when certain luthiers send guitars with extremely high actions, because for most players, this is no good. If you are an incredible powerhouse on the guitar and you are just slamming the guitar all the time, this is really great. But that's not me. I do like to play with volume, and I accept that when I play really loud, it will sometimes buzz. And you guys can chime in and let me know your preferences. But I was saying I lowered the action on this guitar, and then all the opportunities started opening up on this instrument. I noticed its volume more, I noticed its ease of play, and I think the sustain even got a little bit better on this instrument. So I've been blown away by this instrument. First off, before I want to really get into the sound here, but I have to tell you about the headstock here, which, again, it's actually very similar to the Dammann headstock shape with little changes, but you always have to say that these are the Manuel Ramirez headstock shapes here that it's very much inspired by, quite obviously, but with his own little touches here. This rounded edge here reminds me of Torres's guitars, so maybe that's a little bit of an homage. And then I love the sapwood here that goes through the center. It's so classy. It comes to a little flamed tip, like I've seen actually on a lot of Michel Bruck's guitars. It almost looks like a candle's tip here, that it's just on fire. And yeah, it's really special. Now again, I just have to mention the lightness of this instrument. Also, again, I have a scale in here, but maybe I'll put the weight of it up on the screen so you can see, for those of you that are watching the video afterwards. There's so much room for these guitars to open up over time, but you just have to hear how this sounds right now. And I see I'm peaking the microphones, so I'm actually going to lower the volume here a little bit. So you're not going to be able to compare well in this live stream as far as volume goes. But it was so loud that I had to lower my preamps. The characteristic that I have to most clearly highlight out on this guitar, and I have to say amongst the finest, most sought after lightweight German double tops. I know that's a fine category, but if we're talking about this guitar, Michel Bruck, Matthias Dammann, Carsten Cobbs, the things that you'll notice about these is that they are so fundamental heavy. Fundamental as in the actual note, right? Like if I'm playing D, you hear D and the overtones do not take over. They don't just like come in invasively and start surrounding you with all the sound. Which, by the way, that invasiveness of overtones is great for some people. And it's great for me too. I love both sounds actually, and this is why I drive myself crazy just like you all do. But the purity of sound when there's so much fundamental is just to die for. I mean, it's exactly what you're hoping for when you play a note, right? You hope for great sustain that doesn't just come from overtones on the guitar or sympathetic vibrations is what I mean. You hope it's not just like you play this note and everything else rings uncontrollably. You hope it's the actual note you're playing. This A is so far forward in the mix, if that makes sense to you all. It really gives this pure feeling to the guitar. The guitar just sounds pure. And what you get from that when you aren't playing single lines, like I was just demonstrating, is clarity amongst arpeggios and chords. So if I do this, you can hear all of the different pitches without effort, right? And then, of course, with arpeggios, it's incredible, is it not? I mean, you hear everything's so percussive and it's so clear. So if you are a junkie for clear sounding guitars, there's not much better than this. And I have to say, the characteristic about this guitar, besides the clarity and volume and responsiveness that you'll find amongst all of the different highest end German double top guitars, the one that sticks out to me that's most similar to Matthias Dammann's guitars is the character of the first string. Because I have to say, sometimes you get the consequence on some of these extremely lightweight, loud double tops on the first string being a little bit too let's say short sustain and also a little too bright and hard to control to get this beautiful dark sound out of it that I think of when I think of Matthias Dammann's guitars. This one has that dark characteristic and I really think you can hear it. This is the second string. There's the first string, right? Do you hear the darkness I'm talking about? There's also a very surprising amount of sustain on this guitar. especially as you go to the upper frets. So impressive. I mean, yes, if you pick up the guitar you might have at home here and you test the sustain, it'll likely be very good. But the struggle to get great sustain on extremely loud, lightweight double tops is so hard. And trust me, I've seen so many of these and I test them all. Let's listen to some of the other strings here. I've already done a lot of the first, let me show you the second. Okay, fourth. And then how about the fifth string? Is such a rich sound and so clear, like I said. Isn't it great? So easy to control it. Let's check out the sixth string. Do you not hear the richness and how beautiful this sounds? Oh my gosh. You get this depth from the sixth string that I really feel very few guitar makers touch when it comes to comparing it to Matthias Dammann. Well, I have to play for you some more musical examples on this instrument so you can better get to know it. Here we go. Here's a little bit of Capricho Arabe by Tárrega. heard me make a little mistake there, but you hear this. Now I have to say, this guitar is not for everyone. If you really like a super clear sound, you'll be blown away by this guitar. It's a really nice mixture, by the way, of clarity, but not so clear where you hear every little mistake that you make. Especially because of the depth and darkness of this first string. Wow. Well, I hope you've enjoyed getting to know this Reza Safavian guitar from the year 2025. I have to say, it feels like an honor just to touch an instrument like this. It's so perfectly crafted, and also to have the experience of getting to know a guitar from when it's brand new. There is not a single mark on this thing. Whoever the next owner of this is going to have a really fun time hearing this thing open up and become the monster that I'm sure it will become further than it is even right now in the coming years. And gosh, I have to mute it because it's talking too much. Check out all of the photos and the full quality video on guitarcollection.com. Anyhow, this has been a guitar by Reza Safavian, and hope you'll check it out. And congrats to Reza. This is an amazing guitar.